I was living with a psycho roommate. I thought I had found the perfect roommate. She was quiet, kept to herself, and always paid the rent on time. But I soon realized that living with her was a mistake. It turned out that she was so introverted, she hardly ever left our apartment, making it impossible for me to invite friends over for a social gathering. Moreover, she was very particular about her living space and would often get upset if I forgot to put something back in its place. Despite my efforts to make our living situation more comfortable, I found that her lack of compromise made it difficult for us to coexist. In the end, I had to face the fact that just because someone seemed perfect on paper, it doesn't necessarily mean they are the perfect roommate for you. At first, it was subtle. Little things would go missing around the apartment, things I knew I hadn't misplaced. But when I confronted her, she would just smile and say she hadn't seen them. It was easy to brush it off as forgetfulness or absent-mindedness, but as time went on, the missing items became more significant. Expensive jewelry, electronics, even my passport vanished without a trace. I knew deep down it was her, but I couldn't bring myself to believe that someone I loved could do something like that to me. The relationship became strained and the trust was broken. It's hard to trust anyone completely again after something like that, but I learned an important lesson about holding onto things and never underestimating the power of suspicion. Then, I started to notice that she was always around when I was cooking. She would ask me what I was making and offer to help. But something about the way she looked at me made me uneasy. It was almost as if she was analyzing every move I made in the kitchen. I couldn't shake off the feeling that she was trying to judge me based on my cooking skills. As days passed by, I found that she would frequently suggest different ingredients to add or different ways to cook my meals. While her suggestions were often helpful, I couldn't help but feel like she was trying to take over my kitchen. It was like she wanted to change everything about my cooking style and make it her own. The uneasiness in my gut grew stronger and I began to feel like I couldn't cook in peace anymore. One day, I came home early from work and found her rummaging through my drawers. When I asked her what she was doing, she just laughed and said she was looking for a pen. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at her explanation. Why would she need to look through my drawers just to find a pen? I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. It wasn't the first time that she had acted suspiciously around me, but I had always given her the doubt. However, this incident made me realize that I needed to trust my gut feeling. As I observed her movements, I noticed that her hands were shaking. Was she hiding something from me? My mind raced with questions, but before I could utter another word, she nervously handed me a pen and quickly made her way out of the room. This was the moment that I realized that I needed to confront her about my suspicions and seek the truth. But the worst was yet to come. I started to feel sick, dizzy, and confused. I couldn't concentrate, and I would have blackouts. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what it was. As days passed, my symptoms intensified. I started to experience pounding headaches that would last for hours, and my vision became blurry. I visited several doctors, but none of them could pinpoint the cause of my illness. The uncertainty and fear of not knowing what was happening to me took a toll on my mental health. I felt isolated and alone, unable to carry out my daily life and constantly worrying about what was happening to me. I knew I had to keep searching for answers, but the lack of diagnosis made me lose hope. Then one night, I heard her talking in her sleep. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help it. That's when I heard her confess to drugging me multiple times. I froze. I felt a chill run down my spine. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Was this the reason I had been feeling so weird lately? I couldn't even remember most of the nights that she was referring to. It all started to make sense now. My mind was racing, trying to come up with a plan as I stared blankly at the ceiling. How could she do this to me? Who else knew about it? How can I get out of this situation? I knew I needed to confront her, but I also needed to be careful. Who knows what else she was capable of doing? My heart was pounding, and I couldn't shake off this uneasy feeling that something even more sinister was going on. I wasn't safe. She was a manipulative psycho who had tried to hurt me. I knew I had to get out of there. But every time I tried to leave, she would plead with me to stay, to forgive her. It felt like a vicious cycle I couldn't break free from. Her apologies seemed hollow, and I could see the same manipulative tactics she had used before in her attempts to keep me there. The fear of what she might do if I left kept me paralyzed, but I knew deep down that I couldn't stay in this toxic situation any longer. It took every ounce of strength I had to finally walk away and start the healing process. Looking back, I realized that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation, and sometimes the safest thing to do is to let go and move on. I had enough bruises, cuts, and scars to dread the thought of what would happen if I stayed. As I rushed out of the front door with tears rolling down my cheeks, I knew I was leaving behind a life I had always dreamt of. But, deep down, I also knew that it was the right decision for me. I couldn't let myself be enslaved anymore. It has been years now, and I still don't know what happened to her after that dreadful night. Maybe things changed for her, or perhaps they did not. I don't want to find out. Sometimes, it's better to let go of the past and focus on a brighter future. Living with a psycho roommate was the scariest experience of my life. I'll never forget it. The constant fear of when she might snap and lash out at me or our other roommates was exhausting. Even the simplest interactions with her were tense and unpredictable. I never knew what kind of mood she would be in or what might trigger her aggressive behavior. It was a constant source of stress and anxiety, and I couldn't wait to move out and feel safe in my own home again. Looking back on it now, I'm grateful for the experience because it taught me to be more aware of the warning signs of mental illness and to prioritize my own safety and well-being. Moral of the story is, choose your roommates carefully and seek to understand that your personal health is the most important thing there is. Even your closest ones could be psychos, you'll never know.